Before we begin the film, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any new content we provide. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, you'll find the link in the description box. The film begins in the home of a small family in the suburbs of New York City. The family consists of a father named Edward, a mother named Connie, and their son Charlie. We learn that Edward is a very successful businessman who owns a real estate office, in addition to a workshop for manufacturing and exporting cars. Connie is also a businesswoman responsible for organizing charitable fundraisers. Each of them prepares for work, and Edward takes his son to school. Because the weather is extremely windy, he advises his wife to stay home, but she has a very important auction she cannot miss, and she also needs to buy some items for Charlie's birthday party. Edward says goodbye and leaves by car. Connie also gets ready to go to Soho to buy the things she needs for the party. However, due to the bad weather and strong wind that would disturb anyone, she accidentally collides with a young French man named Paul. They both fall to the ground, and their belongings scatter everywhere. The polite young man immediately helps her and gathers her things. Since her leg is hurt, she collects the books and sits on the steps. She asks him to stop a taxi for her, but no one is willing to stop in such weather. She keeps laughing at him because of his childlike reactions. When he notices her injury, he offers to let her come up to his apartment to disinfect the wound. Because of the bad weather, she reluctantly agrees and goes with him. There, we learn that Paul works in selling books, which becomes clear from the huge number of books scattered around. He apologizes if the sight bothers her and shows her where the bathroom is, telling her there are first aid supplies she can use freely. Connie goes in, locks the door, and cleans her wound. When she finishes and comes out, she finds him waiting with tea prepared for her. She thanks him for what he did and asks to call her family to reassure them. She calls home, Charlie answers, and she tells him she'll be a little late. She is surprised when Paul puts ice on her leg, which makes her nervous, and she quickly ends the call. When she tells him her son will turn 9 in a week, he says he is 28 years old and offers her a book to take with her. He makes her choose a specific book and open a page to read. It becomes clear that they are strongly attracted to each other. She then leaves quickly, looking down out of embarrassment. When she returns home, her son welcomes her and runs to check on her when he sees she's hurt. He grabs a camera to take pictures of her as she plays along and pretends to be in great pain. When Edward arrives and sees the photos, he asks her what happened. After learning that a young man helped her, he asks for his address so he can send him a thank you gift. The next day, after her son leaves for school, she opens the book she took from Paul and a piece of paper with his number falls out. She decides to go to Central Park and call him, claiming it's just out of curiosity to check on him. He answers, she reminds him who she is, and thanks him again. He tells her to come for coffee if she truly wants to thank him. Although she is married and has a child, she immediately agrees and goes to his apartment. He starts telling her about his love for books and gives her the first edition of a story he deeply admires. He asks her to take off her jacket so she won't feel uncomfortable, and strangely, she agrees without objection. When he brings the coffee, he asks her to close her eyes, opens a book written in Braille, and holds her hands to teach her how to read it. When he touches her hands, she becomes extremely nervous and leaves before things escalate. Afterward, she decides to visit her husband at his office and gives him a sweater as a gift for no special reason, asking him to try it on. At that moment, Edward receives a phone call and appears very upset because of delays in delivering car engines. Despite his busy schedule, he notices that Connie seems troubled. When he asks her what's wrong, she says she's thinking about the auction and hides her strange visit to Paul. That night after dinner, Edward notices she is washing the dishes absent-mindedly, completely distracted. He doesn't know that the reason is the young man who will turn their lives upside down. The next morning, we are surprised to see that she has gone to Paul's apartment again. As soon as she enters, he treats her romantically, plays music, and dances with her. When she realizes that what she's doing is wrong, she pulls herself away and leaves immediately. But seconds later, she returns because she'd forgot her coat, using it as an excuse. Overcome by desire and weakness, she completely surrenders to Paul. Meanwhile, Edward learns something very strange from his friend. Connie has no auction scheduled anytime soon, contrary to what she told him at the office. He becomes confused and realizes he may have misunderstood something. When he goes home, he asks her some unusual questions that make her suspect he knows something. But he convinces himself he's overreacting, laughs it off, and moves on. As time passes, Connie's betrayal grows worse. We see her talking to Paul on the phone daily and visiting his apartment constantly to satisfy her desires. On the other hand, she continues living her normal life with Edward, who remains unaware of the affair destroying his home. One day, she boldly sits with Paul in a restaurant in public. However, she feels the danger of being seen and asks him to leave because someone might notice them together. Paul, being reckless, points at two men paying at the cashier and bets with her on who will pay the bill. He tells her that if he wins, they'll stay at the restaurant. He wins the bet and keeps his word. Unfortunately for them, one of those two men is Edward's friend, who sees her with Paul in an inappropriate situation. She returns home as if betrayal were something normal. Her behavior toward Edward changes so much that suspicion takes hold of him. He suggests they go out for lunch together as a change of routine. At that moment, he realizes his suspicions are justified when she avoids him, refuses, and lies, saying she has a skincare session at a beauty center far away. When Edward finds that she blocks every attempt, he gives up and goes back to his office. But doubt and anxiety push him to call the beauty center she mentioned. He is shocked to discover there is no reservation under her name that day. At that moment, he becomes certain that something is happening behind his back. Meanwhile, Connie is in Soho, but by bad luck, she runs into two of her friends who insist she joins them at a restaurant. Despite trying to escape, she cannot and goes with them. Yet through her charm and desire, she manipulates her lover into doing whatever it takes to please her. Connie goes to the restaurant phone and calls Paul to tell him she'll be late. But because Paul is reckless and doesn't trust her, he goes to the restaurant where she is. The moment she sees him, she makes an excuse that she's going to the restroom, goes to him immediately, and cheats on her husband again, this time without any remorse. After they finish, they leave as if they don't even know each other. When she returns to her friends, they point at Paul and admire him. One of them says that if he asked her to go with him, she would agree immediately. Their third friend seems more respectable and is bothered by their words. She tells them that betrayal is very difficult. It starts as something small and keeps growing over time until everyone gets hurt. She insists she would never do such a thing because of her children and husband whom she loves. Of course, those words fall on deaf ears. After leaving them, Connie goes straight to Paul's apartment, not thinking about her husband or son even once. She even talks to Paul in a way she has never spoken to Edward, telling him that he never leaves her thoughts from the moment she wakes up until she falls asleep. This makes it impossible for her to stay away from him, no matter how much she pretends to care about the seriousness of betrayal. Meanwhile, Edward is at his workshop, unaware of what's happening behind his back. A conflict arises between him and his friend who saw Connie with Paul at the restaurant. His friend hints at her betrayal, telling him to take care of his family, because a man who has something precious should protect it. Edward stands there shocked, realizing his suspicions were true. He then meets a private investigator friend and asks him to monitor Connie's movements and provide a full report without her noticing. Connie, meanwhile, is at home preparing food, but her behavior is nervous and distracted, even ruining things in the kitchen. That night at dinner, she apologizes because the food isn't very good. Edward tells her he has an important meeting in the morning that may last all day. She notices he seems distracted, and when she asks why, he says he has work problems. The next day, Edward goes to the meeting, clearly unable to focus. Connie, on the other hand, continues living carelessly, forgetting all responsibilities and consequences, immersing herself in her affair with Paul. The investigator manages to photograph their disgraceful act to document everything for Edward. So lost in her affair, Connie even forgets to pick up Charlie from school. When she realizes, she rushes there in panic. Later, at home, she sits alone crying, as if her tears could erase what she has done. She tries to call Paul to end things, but his phone is off, leaving her confused. At that moment, the investigator hands Edward the photos and details of Connie's movements, including Paul's address. Edward is devastated, unable to process what he's hearing or how he will continue living. Meanwhile, Connie, overwhelmed with guilt, decides to go to Paul and end the relationship. But when she arrives, she is shocked to see him with another woman in his office. Furious, she follows and attacks them like a madwoman. Paul takes her upstairs to his apartment and lies, saying the girl is just a friend. She doesn't believe him and tries to leave, but her addiction to him makes it impossible. She weakens again and surrenders completely, forgetting why she even came. At that moment, Paul sees Edward standing below the apartment. When Connie realizes Edward is there, she quickly escapes. Edward goes upstairs to confront Paul. Once inside, Paul casually offers him a drink. Edward asks how he met his wife and what exactly happened between them. When the truth becomes clear, Edward sees a crystal snow globe he had once gifted Connie sitting near the bed. He understands his marriage has collapsed. In a moment of rage, he strikes Paul on the head with the crystal, killing him. Shocked, he sits on the bed, unable to comprehend what he has done. He then decides to erase all evidence, washing the blood from the crystal, wiping fingerprints, and deleting messages from Paul's phone. He hears a voicemail from Connie ending the affair, which makes him appear lost and regretful. He wraps Paul's body in a rug and leaves quickly so no one sees him. He goes to his son's school to attend a play, cleaning blood off himself beforehand. He sits beside Connie as if nothing happened. Later, he disposes of Paul's body in a remote area and cleans his car, trying to erase every trace. But since Edward is not a killer by nature, he becomes anxious and distant. Connie notices and grows suspicious. Police soon visit their home, informing Connie that a man has died and her number was found in his apartment. She pretends not to know him, claiming she only met him once to buy books. When she tells Edward, he acts confused and unconcerned. Although they try to live normally, Edward remains distracted and haunted. Soon, police return after finding Paul's body in a landfill. Connie again denies knowing him. Edward intervenes and asks the officers to leave. Connie later discovers photos in Edward's jacket proving he knew everything. She realizes all is lost and begins to collapse emotionally. At home, she notices the gift she had given Paul is back in its place, confirming Edward did something terrible. After their friends leave, Edward confesses he killed Paul after discovering her betrayal. They don't know how to continue their lives. The next day, Connie looks through their wedding album, remembering the past and understanding the gravity of what she did. She reads a love letter Edward had written to her and feels deep regret. She burns the photos of her affair to remove all evidence. Edward then tells her he plans to turn himself in, but she refuses and insists they overcome this together. A few days later, they sit in their car at a red light in front of a police station. Connie suggests they run away and start over somewhere new. Edward struggles between surrendering and protecting his family, but ultimately chooses his family and agrees. And that's how today's film ends. If you enjoyed the movie, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any new content we provide.